Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is our first time in the atrium, so I'm hoping everyone can hear me just fine. Welcome to tonight's meeting of the Committee of Adjustment. This meeting is to consider applications for minor variance and consent held under the authority of the Planning Act of Ontario. Please keep in mind the intent of this process is to review the proposal that is before us, listen to the evidence, and then make a decision. This process is not intended to be used to resolve any concerns or disputes that may exist between the town, individuals, or organizations. If a request for a deferral is made and the committee grants such a request, the committee, after consultation with the Secretary-Treasurer, will set a new hearing date. No further notice will be provided unless there are changes to the application. In order to conduct an effective and efficient hearing, we have adopted the following process. The owner or authorized agent will be given the opportunity, if so desired, to briefly explain to us the basis of the application and answer any questions that may arise out of the hearing. A maximum of 5 minutes will be provided for this presentation. You will need to state your name and address for the record, and any materials submitted to the committee for viewing will remain the property of this committee. Any submissions beyond the 5 minutes will be at the discretion of the committee. All persons attending the hearing who wish to support or oppose the application must also state their full name and address for the record. A maximum of 5 minutes will be provided for that presentation. All remarks and questions will be directed at the chairperson of the committee. Any submissions beyond the 5 minutes, again, will be at the discretion of the committee. If there are several speakers sharing the same point of view, we do ask that you elect a spokesperson to represent the group's opinion. We do want to hear from all the persons in attendance. However, covering the same points will not advance your case. The owner or agent will then be provided with a further 5 minutes to respond to the comments made by any interested parties and answer any questions from the committee members. If the owner or agent has concerns found in staff report, particularly with any proposed conditions, at that time they will have the opportunity to advise us. The matter will then be taken into committee for a decision, and this will mark the end of all discussions. Once the committee makes an oral decision, any person desiring a copy must file the Secretary-Treasurer at this meeting a written request for notice of the decision. A green sheet is provided for this purpose. Please note that you must make a written request in order to be included on this list and subsequently used for the local planning appeal tribunal for giving of any subsequent notice of any appeal. Written notice of the committee's decision will be mailed no later than 10 days for minor variance and 15 days for consent applications to the applicant, the owner, and/or agent, and any other person who has filed such a written request for this notice. If you do not agree with the committee's decision, you may appeal this to the local planning appeal tribunal, and the last day of appeal for the decision to the local planning appeal tribunal will be noted on the decision. If no appeal is received within the prescribed time frame, the decision of the committee becomes final and binding, and the Secretary-Treasurer will then notify the applicant through written correspondence. People attending this committee are asked to be courteous and respectful of the members of the committee, the town staff, and other people in attendance. Tonight's meeting will be video recorded and available for future viewing on the town's YouTube channel, and we ask that you do switch cellular phones off or at least keep them on silent, as they do tend to interfere with the audio system. Thank you. So we have a full panel this evening. We have no regrets. Are there any declarations of pecuniary interests? I see none. Thank you. At this time, I'd like to take requests for deferral or withdrawal of applications.
I'm requesting, there's going to be a deferral for application CAV A1092018 at 3001 Hospital Gate. That application will not be heard tonight. There was a notice deficiency, and it will be rescheduled for our next meeting, which is July 24th, and further notification will be sent out as well. Is there anybody here for that application? I see no one present. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Secretary-Treasurer. Are there any further requests for deferral or withdrawal of applications? Yes, sir. Good evening.
I'm Raid Rawi from Professional Floor Plans, 5147 Preservation Circle, Mississauga, Ontario, L5M74. I'm the agent of the owner for 448 Drummond Road. I would like to request a deferral.
That's application CAV 102 of 2018.
Yes.
Is there anyone here for application CAV 102 of 2018 at 448 Drummond Road? Are you here in opposition or in support? Opposition, and then the gentleman in the back? Yes, you're all here in opposition? Okay, the request before us right now is for a deferral in order for the applicant to, I'm assuming, to work on the application and speak to town staff, as town staff is not in agreement with the application.
Yes.
So perhaps if you can take a moment to take a look back, those are the neighbors. And if you have a moment to speak to them before you leave, then that would be appreciated. That way, when you come back, we're at a better footing than all these oppositions. I trust that that's okay with everyone. We appreciate that you have come to support and relate your point of view, but this is usually for the benefit of the application and moving forward. Okay. So the applicant has requested a deferral. All those in support of a deferral? Okay, your application has been deferred, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other requests for deferral or withdrawal? I see none, so we will move to our first item on our agenda tonight. It's CAV 101 of 2018 at 2066 Dreamer Road. Dreamer Drive. Deramore Drive. I totally botched that. I apologize. Deramore. Is there anyone here for application CAV 101 of 2018 for 2066 Deramore Drive? I see none. Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair and committee members. My name is Gus Ricci. We are the agents on this application at 2066 Dearmore Drive. Our address is 64 Rebecca Street, Oakville, Ontario, L6J1N9.
Thank you, Mr. Ricci, and you've been here before us, so you're very familiar with our process. Just for the benefit of the audience, we do have the flexibility in foregoing with the applicant presentation, if they so wish, and take the matter into committee. Since we've all done our site visits, we're familiar with the town's comments. And in this case, Mr. Ricci, do you have anything further to add, or are you prepared for us to take this matter into committee?
I'd just like to confirm that you received some letters of support that was sent in to the Secretary-Treasurer this morning.
Yes, they are in our file for this evening.
Okay, thank you. I'd be happy to answer any questions if there are any from the committee members.
We have 3 letters in support, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. So we have 3 letters of support. Are there any questions of Mr. Ricci at this time? Any items of clarification? I see none. Mr. Ricci, if you have nothing further to add, we can take this matter into committee.
Yes, please.
And you are familiar with the proposed condition that the town has suggested?
Yes, I am familiar with that condition.
Okay.
I have read the planning comments and I'm aware of the conditions.
Perfect, thank you. Gentlemen, I'm in your hands. Who's ready to move a motion? Mr. Charlebois, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Having conducted my site visit, reviewed the applicant's written submission as well as the town's written staff report, which I note that staff is in support of this application, and noting that there are nobody here from the public objecting, and as mentioned before, we have 3 letters of support on file. I find that this particular application, as presented, does meet the 4 tests of the Planning Act. I'm prepared to put forward a motion that this application be accepted, subject to 2 conditions. 1, the condition that the approval will expire 2 years from the date of this decision if the proposed development does not proceed or a building permit is not issued. And 2nd, that the proposed dwelling be constructed in general accordance with the plans dated June 5th, 2018 is submitted.
Thank you, Mr. Charlebois. Is there a discussion on this recommendation? I see none. All those in support? Okay, the application has been approved. Thank you, Mr. Ricci.
Thank you.
The next item on our agenda is CAV 103 of 2018 at 1345 Sheldon Avenue. Good evening. Your name and address for the record, please.
Good evening. My name is Sam Pasquale, 27 Gillespie, Toronto.
Sorry, I didn't get your last name.
Pasquale. P-A-S-Q-U-A-L-E.
Okay, Pasquale. Thank you, Mr. Pasquale. Let me just canvass the room. Who is here for CAV 103 of 2018 at 1345 Sheldon Avenue? Okay, hi. You are here in opposition or in support, ma'am? Here for information. Okay, Mr. Pasquale, we will ask you to present your application, as you are quite aware that the town is not in favor of the application, so the committee is interested to hear your application.
Okay, that's fine. We're proposing a two-story structure. We have applying for two variances. We're applying for gross floor area from 41 to 41.98, which is a difference of 0.98%. I was on your website. I have 34 documents here that show that committee approved over GFA anywhere from 1% all the way up to 16.33%. Can I give this to the put it into record? Is that possible? So we believe item number 1 is minor invariance, and also I believe number 2 we're going the proposed is the zoning is 9 meters and we're asking for 9.9. We were unfamiliar with with Oakville, so we weren't sure what the city would allow, but I did go to your website again, and I've seen approvals from 9 meters to 9.59, 9 meters to 9.8, and some from 12 meters to 16.15. There's also been some garages that have been approved from 4 to 5.9, 4 to 4.94, 4 to 6.25 meters, 2.5 to 4.07 meters, 4 meters to 4.88. So we would like to amend the proposed height from 9.9 down to 9.58 to conform what's been approved by the committee here in a previous application this year. So I'm amending the proposed maximum height from 9.9 to 9.59. And I'd like to submit these 8 items into the record.
You can't amend a variance without supporting plans that are to be submitted to the committee as well as planning staff and to be circulated. So while I appreciate your effort to bring down the variance in consideration, it's not the right venue to do that. So we can't accept your application amendment at this time. What you can do is defer your application, submit the plans accordingly, because the problem with your application is not just simply the height. Planning needs to see how you've maintained that height with respect to the abutting property as well as the grade level, which they have concerns with. So again, it's just not possible to do it on the fly right now. So either we hear your application as is with the requested variance at 9.9 and you tell us the merit of your application and we take it into consideration, or you request a deferral. And usually you should request a deferral in the beginning, but seeing as though you're in the beginning of the night, I'm giving you that courtesy.
Okay, I wasn't aware of that, but if that's the case, we'll probably have to defer it to revise the height.
And I think that is prudent given the fact that the town staff would appreciate to see more information and that they weren't favored. And you can ask the lady who's here for more information She can probably ask you questions on your way out.
Okay.
There's also a fee related to the deferral, which is $666.
How much is it?
$666.
Okay, I didn't know about that. I thought deferrals, from my past experience in other municipalities, deferrals are not chargeable, basically. That's why I didn't know that, or else I would have changed the drawings well before the meeting. This was kind of last minute for me, basically. I was hired a few days ago, so I wasn't aware of anything.
Yeah, while we appreciate that the circumstances that you have, it is the policy of the town, and we have no control over changing that. I can't waive the deferral fee for you, since it's not at the town's request.
What is a normal application fee normally, besides the deferral for a committee of adjustment? What is the application fee? First time?
It's $2,926.
Okay. Yeah, I think we should defer it then. That's fine.
Okay, I will take your matter and request before the committee. Gentlemen, you've heard the applicant's reasoning and request. All those in support of a deferral? Okay, your application has been deferred there. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Application CAV 104 of 2018 at 2062 Pineview Drive.
Committee members, Madam Chairman, my name is Louis Battiston. I'm acting as agent for Richard and Carol Dow on this Committee of Adjustment.
Good evening, Mr. Patterson. Just give me a moment to canvass the room. Who is here for CAV 104 of 2018 at 2062 Pineview Drive? Okay, I see no one. Go ahead, Mr. Patterson.
Thank you. What we're doing, we're putting a one-story sunroom addition on the rear of the home. I totally agree with everything that was said by the staff. We're in complete compliance, basically in agreement with the 4 tests. And the only thing that we require is basically a 1.5 foot setback. Usually it's 7.5 meters, and we need basically a 7 meter setback.
Thank you. And this is for the construction and addition of the sunroom to the existing dwelling.
I'm sorry, I'm a bit...
Oh, that's okay. I was just reiterating your application's purpose, the sunroom development for the on the existing dwelling. Is there anything further that you'd like to add?
Does anyone have any questions?
You're taking my job from me, but that's okay. Thank you. Are there any questions of Mr. Patterson? I see none. If you have nothing further to add, and I hear that you're satisfied with the decisions or with the comments of staff as well as their proposed condition, then we can take this matter into committee. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay. So we will take this matter into committee. Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Having conducted my site visit and reviewed the applicant's written submission, as well as the town staff report, which I noted is in support of the application, and having also taken into account the comments presented by the applicant this evening, as well as the noting that there were no written objections from the public, I am prepared to make a motion in support of the application as submitted, with the following conditions: that it is subject to condition that the approval will expire 2 years from the date of the decision if the proposed development does not proceed or a building permit is not issued, if required, and also subject to the condition that the proposed sunroom addition be constructed in general accordance with the plans as submitted.
Thank you, Mr. Flemington. Is there a discussion on this recommendation? I see none. All those in support? Okay, the application has been approved. Thank you, Mr. Patterson.
Thank you.
Application CAV 105 of 2018 at 1511 Devon Road. Good evening.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of committee. My name is TJ Secura. I am a registered professional planner and principal of Design Plan Services here on behalf of the owners of 1511 Devon Road.
Thank you, Mr. Skira. Who is here for application CAV 105 of 2018 at 1511 Devon Road? I see no one. Okay. Mr. Skira, this is an application for construction of the cabana. We have done our site visits. We are familiar with the application. Do you have anything further to add to the application?
No, I concur with the staff report, and I'm happy to answer any questions the committee may have.
Very well, thank you. Are there any questions of Mr. Skira at this time? I see none. So if there's nothing further to add, we're prepared to take the matter into committee.
Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Talowski, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm prepared to move that the application be approved as applied for, finding that it meets the four tests of the Planning Act. I find the relationship of the cabana to the adjacent properties to be such that it should have no impact. I'd note that there's also no objections from the community, and I would make that approval conditional on development proceeding in general accordance with the drawings provided, and that a building permit issue within 2 years.
Very well, thank you, Mr. Trosky. Are there any any discussion on this recommendation? I see none. All those in support? Okay, the application has been approved. Thank you, Mr. Skira.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, thank you.
Application CAV 106 of 2018 at 2270 Stratus Drive.
Good evening. I'm Greg Quinn, the homeowner associated with this application.
Good evening, Mr. Quinn. Is there anyone here for application CAV 106 of 2018 at 2270 Stratus Drive? I see none. Go ahead, Mr. Quinn. This is your time. If you have anything further to add to your application, we're happy to hear it. If you have none and you're satisfied with the conditions that staff have put in accordance with your application, then we can take this matter into committee.
Yeah, nothing to add other than to indicate that we're happy to have the support of the planning staff and 10 letters of support from local neighbors.
Yes, we do have those letters of support on hand.
Yeah.
Are there any questions of Mr. Quinn at this time? I see none. Okay. If you're prepared to take this matter into committee, we're prepared to do so.
Sure.
Okay. Mr. Hardcastle, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Having reviewed the materials, undertaken my site visit, reading the staff report, I'm prepared to put forward a motion of approval subject to two conditions, finding that the application conforms to the four tests of the Act. Approval should be subject to the two conditions, first being that the proposed pool be constructed in general accordance with the plans as submitted, second being that the approval will expire within 2 years of the date of the decision if a permit has not been issued, if required. And I would note that there were 10 letters of support submitted in support of this application.
Very well. Thank you, Mr. Hardcastle. Is there a discussion on this recommendation? I see none. All those in support? Your application has been approved, sir. Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Okay. CAV 107 of 2018 at 2167 Black Forest Crescent. Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and the chair committees, the member of the committees. My name is Ismatullah Amiri. I'm the authorized agent of Ms. Sauni and Harun Sauni. The application that I have, it requires relief from three zoning bylaws. Actually, we are proposing a second unit in the basement, which requires, as per the zoning bylaws, requires which is determined as lesser of the 40% of the residential area or the 40%. So, but we are requesting for a minor variance of 83.3 meters for the second unit area. Plus the second relief that we want is for the parking space. Previously, the house is built as a previous zoning bylaw, which required lesser depth of the driveway. And the house right now have a driveway of 5.5 meter depth to 2.7 in width. But the new zoning bylaw requires 5.7 by 2.7. So we want a relaxation from this zoning bylaw for a registration of the second unit, because it requires 3 parking spaces in total. And the third one is the minimum rear yard setback, which should be 7 meter, and also which is the permit is 5.5 meter, and we're proposing a below grade entrance to the second unit at the backyard, which has also a cover.
Very well, thank you, Mr. Amir. Are there any questions of Mr. Amir at this time? I see none. Sir, if you're familiar with the conditions that staff have requested, and we can take this matter into committee.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Charlebois, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Having conducted my site visit and reviewed the applicant's written submission as well as the town's written staff report, which I must say was very thorough, and noting the staff's support, and also taking into account the comments that I heard from the applicant this evening, and further noting that there were no letters of objection or support, or no one showing up here at the public to voice an objection or support, I find that this particular application as presented does meet the 4 tests in the Planning Act. I'm going to put forward a motion that be accepted, subject to 2 conditions. 1, that the proposed accessory dwelling unit and rear access stairs be constructed in general accordance with the plans as submitted, and further subject to the condition that this approval will expire within 2 years from the date of this decision if the development does not proceed or a building permit is not issued.
Very well. Thank you, Mr. Charlebois. You're familiar with those conditions?
Yes.
Okay. And is there any discussion on these recommendations? I see none. Okay. All those in support? Okay. Your application has been approved, sir. Thank you.
Very much.
Application CAV 108 of 2018 at 2235 Chancery Lane West. Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Jamie Cameron. I'm the agent and architect for the project.
Very well. Good evening, Mr. Cameron. Is there anyone here for CAV 108 of 2018 at 2235 Chancery Lane West? Are you here in opposition or support? You're the owner. The gentleman in the back? Support. Okay, thank you. Do you still require a presentation, or you're familiar with the application?
You asking me?
Oh, no, I'm asking the sir, if you'd be kind enough to come to the front, would you like to put your name and address for the record? I can't hear you. You have to speak into the microphone.
Yeah, I come here for my wife. My wife is the owner. Her name is Hai Xiaowei.
Okay, so you're representing your wife.
Yeah.
What is the address that you're representing?
2234 Bennington Gate.
2234?
Bennington Gate.
Bennington Gate.
Yeah. Oh, you ask my address or?
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, it's fine. If you're representing your wife, and then you can just tell us her address and your name.
Stephen.
Stephen.
Yeah.
And your last name, sir?
Wu, W-U.
W-U. Wu. Okay, so you're here in support, just to voice your support.
Yeah, yes.
Okay, thank you. We appreciate you taking the time and coming down. I'm certain the applicant is appreciative of that as well.
Okay, no problem.
I'd just like to add that there are 2 letters of support as well I'd like to submit.
Very well, thank you. Okay, Mr. Cameron, if you have nothing further to add, we are prepared to take the matter into committee. This is your time to do so.
Yep, that's fine.
Perfect. And you are familiar with the conditions that staff have put in place for the second-story addition?
Yep.
Okay. Are there any questions of Mr. Cameron at this time? I see none. Okay, we are prepared to take it into committee. Who would like to move a motion? Mr. Flemington, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Having conducted my site visit and reviewed the applicant's written submission, as well as the town's staff report, which I noted is in support of, also having taken into account the comments presented by the applicant and the applicant's neighbor in support of, and noting that there were a couple of letters, two letters of support for the application. I am prepared to make a motion in support of the application, subject to the condition that the approval will expire 2 years from the date of the decision if the proposed development does not proceed or a building permit is not issued, and also subject to the condition that the proposed addition be constructed in general accordance with the plans as submitted.
Very well, thank you, Mr. Flemington. Is there a discussion on this recommendation? I see none. All those in support? The application has been approved. Your application has been approved, sir. Thank you. Application CAV 110 of 2018 at 251 Sandwell Drive. Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Darren Smith. I'm the agent for the owners.
Good evening, Mr. Smith. Is there anyone here in attendance for application CAV 110 of 2018 at 251 Sandwell Drive? I see none. Mr. Smith, this is your application for the proposed construction of a covered porch. This is your time. If you have anything further to add, we're happy to hear you. If not, we've done our site visits and we're familiar with the application.
I'm good, thanks. I'm open to any questions.
Okay, and you're in agreement with the condition that staff has recommended?
I am.
Thank you. Are there any questions of Mr. Smith at this time? I see none. Members, I'm in your hands. Mr. Talowski, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, I'm prepared to move the application be approved as applied for, and finding that the proposed covered porch be a positive addition to the streetscape and that it meets the 4 tests of the Planning Act. I'd make that approval subject to 2 conditions: that the porch proceed in general accordance with the drawings provided, and that a building permit issue within 2 years, and I'd also note that there's no opposition from the public.
Thank you, Mr. Talowski. Is there a discussion on this recommendation? I see none. All those in support? The application has been approved. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Application CAV 027 of 2018 for 89 2nd Street, and this was deferred from February the 27th of 2018.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of committee. For the record, TJ Secura from Design Plan Services here on behalf of the owners of 89 2nd Street.
Very well. Thank you, Mr. Secura. I guess those are the owners, so I don't need to canvass the room.
No, these are actually the neighbors, and we just had a quick chat. They're welcome to speak, but they're asking me questions about construction. So.
Okay, so I will have to canvass the room as per our bylaws. Good evening. Are you here in attendance? Sir, ma'am? Good evening. You're here to request some information for this application? So, okay, so you don't want to go on record. Thank you.
I'm happy to chat with the neighbors after the committee meeting.
Very well, I appreciate that. Thank you. Are there any questions of Mr. Skira at this time? Any items of clarification? The application is for a new story detached dwelling. Mr. Skira, do you have anything further to add, or can we take this matter into committee?
If there's no questions, I have nothing further.
Perfect, thank you. Mr. Hardcastle, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Having undertaken my site visit, reviewed the staff report, and reviewed the materials. I'm satisfied that the requested variance conforms to the four tests of the Act. Accordingly, I'll put forward a motion of approval, subject to two conditions. The first being that the proposed dwelling be constructed in general accordance with the final approved heritage permit to the satisfaction of the Director of Planning Services, and the second being that the approval will expire within 2 years of the date of the decision if a permit has not been issued. I would note that while there were members of the public present, there were no deputations made with respect to this matter.
Very well. Thank you, Mr. Hardcastle. Mr. Skira, you're familiar with those conditions?
Yes.
And you're satisfied with them? Is there a discussion on this recommendation? I see none. All those in support? Okay, your application has been approved, sir. Thank you.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, once again, thank you.
We have minutes, correct? Okay. Gentlemen, we have minutes to move, the minutes of May 22nd and the minutes of June 26th.
Madam Chair, sorry, jumping the gun. I'll put forward a motion that those two sets of minutes be approved as submitted.
Thank you, Mr. Charlebois. All those in support of the moving of the minutes? Perfect, thank you. Motion for adjournment. Mr. Hardcastle, thank you. Mr. Hardcastle, adjourned at 7:37. Thank you.